All right, today we're diving into a really wild story. It's about an AI startup called Gamma and how they took what was literally called one of the worst ideas ever and turned it into a company with, get this, over 100 million users. And they did it by basically throwing the typical startup playbook out the window. So just picture this for a second. You're the founder, Grant Lee. You're pitching your heart out late at night from this tiny little corner crammed between your kitchen and your laundry room. And the investor on the other end of the line just says, "This has got to be the worst idea I've ever heard." I mean, talk about brutal. And then he just hung up. That's it. You can't get much lower than that. Okay, but here's where the story just completely flips on its head. From that one totally crushing rejection, Gamma just exploded. We're talking over 100 million users. They're valued in the billions, and get this, they're actually a profitable business. The big question is, how? How in the world did they pull that off? All right, so let's dig into that so-called worst idea ever. What was it? Well, Gamma was basically a new way to think about presentations, a tool to completely reimagine how we create and share ideas. But the challenge they were facing was, well, monumental is putting it lightly.
I mean, seriously think about it. They were trying to compete with giants. We're talking PowerPoint, Google Slides. These things have a 40-year head start. They've got every feature you can possibly imagine, and they come bundled with the biggest software packages on the planet. It was, for all intents and purposes, an impossible fight.
And this is where their strategy gets really smart. Gamma knew they couldn't just build a slightly better PowerPoint. That's a losing game. They had to be fundamentally different. So, instead of trying to improve that old, clunky 16:9 slide, they just threw it out and rethought the whole thing from the ground up. They created something that felt more like a web page, fluid, interactive, and built for the way we share ideas now.
Okay, so having a different idea is one thing, but actually getting people to use your product, and even more, to love it, that's a whole other ballgame. And for Gamma, the journey to finding that sweet spot, that product market fit, well, it was definitely not a straight line. They actually had a pretty humbling false start before they figured it out.
And you can really see that journey right here. Their first launch on Product Hunt, I mean, it looked like a massive success on paper. They won Product of the Day, week, month, the whole shebang. But then the hype wore off and nothing. Growth just went flat. It was a classic vanity metric. The real deal, the real breakthrough, was when they rebuilt the product around AI. All of a sudden, signups went from a few hundred a day to over 20,000. And this was all organic with zero marketing spend. That is what real product market fit looks like.
So, seeing that their growth was stalling, the team made a really gutsy call. It was one of those bet the company moments for real. They stopped everything else they were doing to focus on one single problem: solving the terror of the blank page. You know that feeling, right? Their entire goal was to use AI to make the first 30 seconds of using Gamma feel, well, magical.
And that idea became their North Star, their whole philosophy. For them, real product market fit wasn't about a temporary spike in signups from a launch. No. It was about building what they called a word-of-mouth machine. A product that was so genuinely useful, so magical in that first moment, that you couldn't help but tell someone else about it. The product had to sell itself.
So once they had that word-of-mouth machine humming along, it was time to really step on the gas. But of course, they weren't going to do it the normal way. True to form, their growth strategy defied all the conventional wisdom you hear about.
Which brings us to the big question, right? You've got this product that people absolutely love, but you're still competing against behemoths with basically infinite marketing budgets. So how do you actually reach millions of users? How do you get the word out?
Well, their answer was totally counterintuitive. They didn't go chasing superstars. They didn't pay massive fees to influencers with millions of followers. Nope, they went small. They built their growth engine on the back of thousands of micro-influencers, people who were trusted voices in very specific niche communities.
And the way they did it was so personal, it's kind of crazy. The founder, Grant, would personally get on calls with these folks. He wasn't just handing them a script and a check. No, he was actually onboarding them, brainstorming content ideas with them, and basically just empowering them to tell the Gamma story in their own authentic way to their audience. It's the definition of something that doesn't scale, and it worked like a charm.
And this do-the-opposite kind of thinking, it wasn't just a marketing tactic. It's literally baked into the DNA of the entire company. It shows up in everything, from who they hire to how they actually structure their teams.
Take their hiring philosophy, for example. It's completely backward from what you usually see in Silicon Valley. Most startups are in a race to hire as fast as possible. Gamma, they hire, and I'm quoting here, painfully slowly.
They're not looking for deep specialists for every little role. Instead, they want these T-shaped generalists, people who can do a lot of things pretty well, but have deep expertise in one area. And their managers aren't just managers. They're player coaches, still coding, still designing, still right there in the trenches. And this is how a tiny team of about 30 people can support millions and millions of users.
What it all boils down to is this idea of hiring missionaries, not mercenaries. They want people who are genuinely, deeply passionate about solving the problem, in this case, communication. They're not interested in people who are just chasing the next hot startup or the latest AI trend. And what you get from that is a team with real staying power, a team that builds knowledge and culture over the long haul.
All right, so as we start to wrap this up, what are the big takeaways here? What's the actual playbook we can learn from Gamma's journey, from the worst idea ever to this massive success? Okay, here's the playbook in a nutshell. Lesson 1. Real product market fit means your product is a word-of-mouth machine. Don't get distracted by vanity metrics. Lesson 2. Forget the celebrities. Scale your growth with authentic micro-influencers. Trust beats reach every time. Lesson 3. Build your team with missionaries. Hire painfully slowly and find those versatile generalists who really care. And finally, Lesson 4. Obsess over the workflow. Go deep on a problem you actually care about, because that's how you build a business that lasts.
And that really leaves us with one last big idea to think about. Gamma's story is proof that the line between a dumb idea and a world-changing one can be ridiculously thin. So it really makes you wonder, right? What's that worst idea ever that you've heard, or maybe even had yourself, that's just one crucial insight, one magical user experience away from becoming the next big thing?